Hello, welcome to my channel. Today's topic is stop looking back if you want to move forward. And I'm going to be reading from my notes app as usual. And I will just get started. Recently, I've become somewhat obsessed with the mythology or the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Tragic love stories just tug at my heart in a what if kind of way. So if you don't know about the story, here's a brief summary. Orpheus, a talented musician, falls in love with a beautiful woman named Eurydice. And soon after they get married, soon after their romance, they get married. And shortly after their marriage, Eurydice is bitten by a snake and dies. Orpheus is so heartbroken by the loss of his beloved that he finds a way to journey to the underworld without dying first. And on getting there, he is confronted by Hades, king of the underworld. And Orpheus pleads with Hades to give him his wife back. And in many retellings of this story, it's said that he sings songs of grief and love, songs that move Hades to allow Eurydice to return to the land of the living with Eurydice, his wife. So Hades gives his word to Orpheus. Hades gives his word that Eurydice will follow Orpheus out of the underworld, but on one condition. He is not to look back nor speak to her until they get to the land of the living. So he's supposed to lead the way out of the underworld with Eurydice following behind him, but he's not supposed to speak to her or look back at her until they are in the land of the living. And with this, Orpheus makes his journey back. As he journeys back, he can hear footsteps echoing behind him, but he's not sure whether they are his or hers. He can hear ragged breaths, but are they solely his? How can he tell if Hades really kept his word? As he approaches the exit of the underworld, he cannot bear the suspense anymore, and so he looks back. And there she is. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be dramatic. And there she is, his bride, out of breath and with shiny, hopeful eyes. But he sees her, but for a moment. He had broken the condition, and so she's snatched back into the underworld forever. And Orpheus is torn apart by grief for the rest of his life. Another story that I would briefly touch on that reminds me of the story of Orpheus and Eurydice is the story of Lot's wife. If you know your Bible stories, then you know the story. They are fleeing from Sodom and Gomorrah, and the angels that have come to mete out vengeance on the land warns them not to look back. But as Lot, his wife, and two daughters make their way out of the city, Lot's wife turns back, and she becomes a pillar of salt. African folklores also have lots of stories about the folly of looking back. So one must ask, why do the ancient texts and stories counsel against looking back? But before we answer that, perhaps we might briefly explore why anyone looks back. I think safety is a part of it. The past is safe because we have lived it, we know it, there are no surprises there. Whereas the present and the future are unknown. The other day I was thinking about it, I was musing on this whole past future thing, and I theorized that the past is two-dimensional and the present is three-dimensional and the future is four-dimensional. The theory might be wrong because I'm not really conversant with all the intricacies of dimensions and what they entail. So, but if you have a brief understanding, two-dimensional like lines, and you can't really interact with them as much as you can interact with the three-dimension. I do not really have much idea about the fourth dimension, but it is beyond a lot of our current understanding, right? So, but think of the past as a picture. No matter how much we stare at it, no matter how enhanced it is, even if we make it into a sort of virtual reality type thing, we cannot really interact with it in a way that makes any difference to our present. And if we stay too long in the past, even the present passes away unnoticed. And since no future exists outside of the present, so does the future. And this may be one of the many reasons why ancient texts frown upon looking back. There is no future to be found from excessively interacting with the past. Fate is possibly another reason. When we think of the story of Lot's wife, I really want to name her. I really don't like the idea of calling her Lot's wife, but yeah. Anyways, the story of Lot's wife and Orpheus and Eurydice are a story about a lack of faith. One can postulate that the lack of faith in their future, in the gods that had given them a promise of salvation, was what led to their tragic endings. Excuse me. Excuse me. Even if you are not a person of faith, excuse me. Okay, excuse me. Even if you are not a person of faith, one must acknowledge that faith is what keeps our world spinning. Not literally, but figuratively. It's faith to an extent that keeps us investing, working out, taking care of our human vessels, furthering our knowledge, even having kids. To do all these things, there has to be an iota of faith in the future. Faith that we would be part of that future, however obscure that future might be. I think the divine loves acts of faith. If the ancient texts are anything to go by, I think the divine loves acts of faith, and I think we need it. This, of course, doesn't mean we should not reminisce on good times or give ourselves a pat on the back for how far we've come. This does not mean we should not, retrospect on how far we've come. But I think the key to looking back is the purpose. The key to surviving the look back is the purpose. Why are we looking back? I also think that it matters when to look back. Orpheus could have looked back once they had made it to the land of the living, and his wife would have been safe. He himself and his wife would have been safe. Lot's wife could have looked back when they were safely in the mountains, and she would have been safe. As is seen in Genesis 19:27, the next day Abraham was able to look upon the land and not incur the wrath of God. So she could have looked back, she could have waited to look back. That's what I just mean. So I would zoom in now to the creative, because really recently I just want to talk about the creative process and how it's like fate and whatever. So I'll zoom into the creative now. Many times when I'm caught into my own creative experience, I will zoom in now. So many times when I'm caught in the vicious cycle of refreshing my stats or analytics, all that I feel is dread, worry, anxiety, all that. I very rarely feel inspired doing all the refreshing, looking back. So because I have not, I think that is the case, especially for like my small channel and for my publishing business. When I keep refreshing and just getting stuck in that process, I hardly feel inspired. I hardly have ideas come to me on what next to work on. I'm filled with dread, I'm filled with worry, I'm filled with anxiety. And I think that a huge part of it is because I have not gone a substantial distance enough to look back. Oh my God, if they can like this. I'm sorry. Okay, so I have not gone a substantial distance in order to look back. For example, the analytics of my YouTube doesn't have much to go on. How many subscribers do I have? How many views do I have? That I do not have enough to be refreshing all the time. There's nothing new that I'm going to learn from refreshing 100 times. Yet I get caught in that cycle. There's nothing new that I would get from refreshing my Kindle page on my Amazon, because I do not have that much books out. So yet I get stuck in the process. So I've not gone a significant distance that will make looking back useful to me. So why do we get caught up in that? So that is something I want small creatives to think about. I know that it's easier said than done, but we should be aware that we are not going to get any new insights, you know, looking back when we have not traveled that far. So let me see what else I have in my notes. Okay, I think it's the same thing. So I barely have any data that can give me any substantial insights. So why am I caught in a refreshing the page cycle? Does this mean that I'd not end this video and go on refreshing the analytics page? Am I cured from looking backism? No. But I'm more aware now to push on more than I look back, at least for now. There is time for everything after all. So that is all that I have on my notes app, and that is all that I have for today's video. The goal and the aim is not that we should not look back at all, but that we should make progress more than we look back, and that there is a time where looking back will be beneficial to us. There's a time where looking back will have insights for us. But when we have not traveled too far, there's no benefits to looking back too often. We get caught in the past while the present passes us by, and by the present passing by, so does the future. I remember talking to a woman from my village, you know, and she told me, I don't know what we're discussing about, but I think she was giving me some sort of comfort, and she was like, oh, I shouldn't worry about how far I have to go, because when she was younger and they used to clear large hectares of land, like the only way you were going to make progress was not looking how far you had to go, but your next step. She was like, just put your eyes on the ground and keep clearing, and by the time you look up, you would have seen that. Then you would realize that you've gone a very far distance from where you started. But if you look at the distance you have to clear, if you look at the expanse of land you have to clear in order to plant, it's very discouraging. But if you just look at the next possible step, yeah, it's not as discouraging. So thank you so much for listening to my video, and I hope it has been very, very useful to you. Anyways, this is where I'm going to end it. Bye.